Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Passionate Kelsey. For this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this super cool and awesome, very simple granny stitch vest. So let's get started. Alright guys, for this tutorial today, you are going to be needing some yarn. And for this tutorial, I'm going to be using Caron All Day Cotton. This is a nice and sturdy cotton. It's really good, really breathable for this kind of top. If you do not have this certain yarn, you can use any worsted weight yarn, but I would definitely recommend cotton. So a worsted weight just means that it is a medium or a 4 weight. I myself am going to make this top to be multicolored, which is why I have 4 of them. You can make it a solid color, you can do 2 colors, 3 colors, however many you want. Just make sure you have a nice amount of yarn. And then for your hook size, you're going to need a 5mm crochet hook. I'm using a Clover Amore hook because those are my favorite. You're going to need a pair of scissors and a tapestry needle. Almost forgot, you are also going to need a 4mm crochet hook. You're probably going to need a tape measure and some stitch markers. Throughout this tutorial, while making this top, it's just basically going to be kind of like a make to your own measurements type of deal. So at certain steps throughout the process, I'm just going to ask you to hold it up to your body and make sure that it is fitting you that way. There is not going to be separate sizes such as extra small through extra large. You're just going to make this to fit your body personally. So first, I will be starting by making a granny square. I'm just going to need my hook and my first color. I'm going to be doing stripes, and I'll just go in order. I'm going to go with cream, turquoise, brown, and then green, and then I will start over at the beginning. Starting with the cream color, we are going to be doing a pretty basic granny square. So first thing I'm going to do is make a magic circle. I'm going to put my yarn in my left hand with the end towards my pinky. I'm going to be wrapping it around my first 2 fingers, over, under, and over. I'm going to cross and make an X. Then I will take my hook. I'm going to go under the bottom yarn right here. I'm going to grab the top yarn with my hook right here and pull it through and have a loop around my hook. Then I'm going to yarn over that same yarn again. I'm going to pull through my loop, and that just secures my magic circle. If you are a beginner, I have a more clear and concise tutorial for the magic circle on my channel, or if you would like to use your own method for starting a granny square, you can do that. I am just going to be starting with the magic circle. So from here, I'm going to be starting my granny square with a stacked single crochet. So I'm going to do a single crochet into my magic circle, just a regular single crochet. So I'll go through the circle, yarn over, pull through once, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is a single crochet. To do a stacked single crochet, I'm going to do another single crochet, but I'm going to be going through the front leg on my first single crochet. So this hole right here. Once you're in there, just go ahead and do a regular single crochet. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And that is my stacked single crochet. So that's 2 single crochets right on top of each other. That is going to count as my first double crochet. Okay. To do my first cluster of 3, I need to do 2 more double crochets. So I'll yarn over, go through my magic circle, and do a double crochet. I'm going to do 1 more double crochet. And now we have our first cluster of 3. So we have our stacked single crochet that counts as our first double crochet. We have our second double crochet, and we have our third double crochet. So this is our first side of our square. Now I want to make a corner, so I'm going to chain 2. Now I need another side because squares have 4 sides. So I'm going to do 3 more double crochets into our magic circle here. Okay, 3 more double crochets. That is our second side of our square. Now we need another corner, so I'm going to chain 2. Working our way around to our third side of our square, we need to do 3 more double crochets in the magic circle. 1, 2, and 3. So I need another corner. We're going to chain 2. Now we're going to make our fourth and final side of our square. So I need 3 more double crochets into the magic circle. There we go. To finish our first round off, we need to chain 2 to make our last corner. And then we are going to slip stitch into the top of our first double crochet or our stacked single crochet. I'm going to go through the top loop right here. Yarn over, pull through there, and pull through again to do the slip stitch. Kind of tighten that down. And then from here, I am going to be changing colors, so I'm going to cut this off. If you're not changing colors, if you're making the whole thing solid, just leave your yarn attached. From here, I am going to pull my loop straight out with my hook, like this. Pull it all the way through until your yarn pops out. There you go. And there you have it, your first round. You should have 4 sides and 4 corners. From here, I'm going to weave in my ends as I go. So I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to grab my middle end and I'm going to put that on my tapestry needle. And I'm going to pull on it to kind of close up my magic circle. There you go. And then to reinforce the circle so that it doesn't break at some point in the future, I'm going to take this piece of yarn and I'm going to run it under all of these stitches around the circle, either 2 or 3 more times, depending on how long this is, just to add some strength. Because there has been many stories of people who've had a magic circle break on them and then their whole square starts unraveling from the middle. So I'm just going under all of these stitches that we did around the circle. Once you've done that 2 or 3 times, kind of stop at some point on the circle that is near the corner where you have your other end. And at this point, we are going to take our corner end, the one that's connected right where we did the slip stitch, and put that on our tapestry needle. And then I'm going to weave this end through some of the loops down to meet where my other end is, and then I'm going to tie them together in a knot. Okay, now that they have met up with each other, I can take this out, and I'm going to tie those 2 ends together to secure them. I like to tie them together about 3 times at least. So that would be my second knot. This one is my third. And that is good enough for me. I am going to cut these off. If you would like to weave them in further, go ahead. Here's our first round of the granny square. That's the back, and this is the front. Completed and ends woven in. Moving on, I'm going to grab my next color, which for me is going to be this teal color. I'll show you how I start my second row on the granny squares. So on my new color, I'm going to create a slip knot. I'm going to put it on my hook, tighten it down. And then from here, I'm going to just start working directly onto my granny square with a double crochet. So I'm going to put my finger on this loop to just kind of hold it in place. And then I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go into my open spot, which is on this corner, any corner, whichever one. And I'm going to go through the corner. I'm going to yarn over, do a double crochet. So pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2 again. And there you go. You have a standing double crochet. Now you're going to work around this just as a regular granny square. So I have my first double crochet in the corner. I'm going to do 2 more. So I will yarn over, do a double crochet, yarn over, do another double crochet. And there's my first cluster in the corner. At this point I need to make another corner space, so I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to do 3 more double crochets into that same corner spot. Now, if you have watched my granny square tutorial, this is going to be just ever so slightly different, because on this pattern I wanted the square to be a little bit bigger, have a little bit bigger spaces, be a little bit more drapey. So in between clusters I am going to be chaining 1, and I'm going to do this throughout the entire square, throughout the entire granny stitch pattern. So in between these 2 clusters I just did a chain 1. Now I'm at my other corner, so I'm going to do another corner, which is a cluster of 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 more double crochets. Now I'm going to chain 1, do another corner, three double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 1 between clusters on the sides, another corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2 for the corner space, and 3 more double crochets. Now I've come back all the way around to where we started. Since it's in between clusters on the side, I'm still going to chain 1. And then to complete the round, I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the first double crochet, which is going to be right here. There you go. And then I am going to switch colors, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. Once again, you can just pull this straight out until the yarn comes all the way through. Okay, so now this might be a little bit controversial, but I am not a huge fan of weaving in ends. So all I'm going to do right now is take these 2 ends right here. They're right in the same spot, and I'm just going to tie them together. So I'll make a knot 1, make a knot 2, pull it real tight. Okay. This is why using a strong yarn is recommended. And then I'm going to tie another knot, number 3. At least 3, sometimes I do 4 even. And then from here, I personally will just snip these ends off. If you would like, if you want it to be a little bit more secure, if you don't trust in it, you can take your tapestry needle and weave those ends in farther down, but I will not be doing that today. So here's our completed round 2. And every round after that is pretty much the same. So anytime you have a corner, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Anytime you're on a side, every open space, every chain 1 spot will have a cluster of 3 in it, 3 double crochets. And then in between all of your clusters of 3, you're going to chain 1. And just keep working your way around. Okay, so I'll show you the next round. Next color I'm going to go with is brown. We're going to start the same way. I'm going to do a slip knot, put it on my hook, tighten it down, hold that slip knot with my finger. Then I'm going to do a standing double crochet. You can start anywhere you'd like. You can start in a corner, you can start on a side piece, whatever. Last time we started in a corner, so I'll just show you how to start on a side. Right here. I'm going to go through, make sure I yarn over first, go through and do a double crochet. There we go. I'm on a side, so I need 3 more double crochets. 2 more, sorry, to have a total of 3. There we go. 3 double crochets in my side piece there. Next, moving on, I want to chain 1. And then I have a corner. So in this chain 2 space on the corner, we're going to make another corner, which is 3 double crochets. Chain 2, 1, 2, and then 3 more double crochets. All in that same spot there. Okay, corner is done. Moving on, we're on a side, so I'm going to chain 1 In this chain 1 spot here, I'm going to do a cluster of 3 double crochets. There we go. Chain 1 in between your clusters, and then we're at a corner. So make another corner and just work this pattern all the way around. Okay, once you've gone all the way around and you've got back to where you started, make sure you don't forget the chain 1 for the side space, and then slip stitch into the top of your first double crochet. I will be changing colors, so I'm just going to cut this off, pull this out, flip it over, and I'm going to tie these 2 together in a knot 3 or 4 times. There we go, that's good enough, so I'm going to cut them off. Alright, so those are going to be your rows on the granny square. You're going to keep adding rows to your granny square until it is the right size. And to know when you're at about the right size, I'm actually going to show you. Hello! So, for this portion of the tutorial, the sizing bit, I would recommend you wear some close-fitting item of clothing on the top. If you're wearing like a big baggy t-shirt, some of the excess can kind of get in the way whenever you're sizing. I would honestly recommend you wear like a tank top that you just really like the fit of. That's what I was doing the first time that I made this top, and I just made it look pretty much exactly like the tank top that I was wearing. I'm gonna be wearing a sports bra. I hope that's fine. So here's what my granny square looks like. I have been adding rows and adding rows until it got to a size that I personally liked. I ended up doing 9 rows, okay? But this is how you're going to look at it. So whenever you hold it up to yourself, it should fit nicely across your chest, and it should go almost from armpit to armpit, okay? There is just like a tiny bit. It lines up really nicely with the straps on my tank top. If you could look at that. Also, it's gonna stretch a little bit if you block it, especially and after washing and wearing and stuff. But yeah, if you look at this, it lines up pretty perfectly with the outside straps on my tank top, and it is just ever so slightly in from my armpits on both sides. Got it? So if you were, let's say, making this for someone else and you wanted to ask them to send you a measurement, I would ask them to send a measurement of themselves on the front, either wearing a nice tank top like I said, or they could just measure for you from armpit to armpit, and you can take off like an inch. So it'd be about ½ an inch in on both sides, right? This is a little hard to measure like by yourself, honestly, but I would just put your arms down, bring up your elbows, okay, and measure from here to here. So on me, that measurement from armpit to armpit is about 12 inches. And if I take off an inch, then my square should be about 11 inches. So it is indeed just about 11 inches. So yeah, that's how big your main square should be. And you're gonna make 2 of these because you need one for the front, and then you're gonna need one on the back as well. Okay guys, I have made both of my squares to the right size. So we have 2 squares, they are exactly the same. We're gonna put them together, and one of them will be on your front, one of them will be on your back. Right now, we're just gonna need 1 square though. What we are going to do at this very moment is find our center spot on one of the sides of our squares, and then we will work up from the center and create our neckline / straps, okay? So on your top, to find the center, like the easiest way is to just count your clusters. So starting at the corner, we have 1 on each side, 2, 3, 4, and then there's 1 in the center. So that is my center cluster here. I'm going to mark that just with a stitch marker. Just going to put it right through the center, okay? So I have my center marked, and then on each side there is 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters. If you did a different amount of rows than me, your clusters on each side is obviously going to be a different number, okay? But just make sure that you have your center cluster of 3 marked. Also, I should add, I have an odd number of rows. If you did an even number of rows, you will not have 1 in the center. You're going to have 2 in the center, okay? So, for example, let's just say I didn't do this row of cream, and so like my last row was green. That would be 8 rows, so that's an even number. If you do the same thing, start at your corner and count towards the center, you would have 1, 2, 3, and then I would count 4, but there's not 1 in the center. So what you would do is you would take your marker and you would place it on either side of your 2 center clusters. So 1, 2, 3. These 2 are in the center. So I would put a stitch marker in this space and in this space so that I know those 2 in between my markers are the center. So just pretend this isn't here. I'd put it around that chain space, and I'd put the other one on the other side. Okay, so these 2 would be the center, and then there is an even number on both sides. So this one would have 3, both sides. So this is what it would look like just looking at the green. If you had an even number of rows, if you have an odd number of rows, you're going to have 1 in the center. 2 in the center, 1 in the center. Got it? Now, grab whatever color you want to start working on the straps with. I'm going to continue working with my cream color. Make a slip knot with that color. Put it on my hook and tighten it down. We're going to be starting in the corner, and we're going to work our way to the center with just regular granny clusters. So starting in the corner, I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to do a double crochet in that chain 2 spot right in the corner there. Now I want to make a whole cluster of 3, so I need to do 2 more in that same spot right there. 1 and 2. So now I have a cluster of 3 in the corner. I'm going to move on to my next chain 1 spot. Can't forget to chain 1 in between as well. And I'm going to do my next cluster of 3. Just continuing with the regular granny stitch all the way until I get towards the center. So chain 1, move to the next spot, do a cluster of 3. Chain 1, next cluster of 3, and you're actually going to stop about 1 space before you get to your marked area. So I have 1 space before my center, okay? If you were on an even row and you had 2 in the center, it would be 1 space before where your stitch marker is. So my stitch marker should be here. Actually, let me just move it. I'm just going to put 1 stitch marker on either side of the center, so that will make more sense. So either you're going to have 1 cluster of 3 in the center between your 2 stitch markers like me, or you're going to have 2, okay? But I just have 1. From here, we're going to start decreasing for our neck, okay? So into where you have your marked space, right here, you're just going to chain 1, and then you're going to do 1 double crochet in the same spot as my marker. I'm going to go through there, and I'm going to do 1 double crochet. And that is a decrease, okay? Now I'm going to take my whole project, I'm going to turn it so I can work back the other way. I want to do another decrease, so on the end I'm going to chain 3. That is going to count as my double crochet plus a chain 1, and then I'm going to move on to my next chain 1 spot, which is going to be right here. So skip this whole cluster, go into your next chain 1 spot, yarn over, and do 3 double crochets. Okay, see how it's making a diagonal slope? Chain 1, move on to your next open spot, do a cluster of 3. chain 1, next open spot, cluster of 3. And then at the end, you're just going to have this cluster of 3 here. To finish it off, you're still going to chain 1 as an open space, but then you're just going to do 1 double crochet in your very last stitch here. Okay, and that keeps your edges nice and flat. So this will be like going up and over your shoulder, and this will be going up and around your neck. Next, I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to start with a cluster of 3. I will just chain 2. That's going to count as my first double crochet, and then I'm going to do my other 2 double crochets into this open space right here, okay? That's 1, and that's 2. So now you've got your cluster of 3, and that matches up with this row down here where we started. I'm going to chain 1 for my space. I'm going to go into my next available space and do a cluster of 3 double crochets. Do that all the way across in every chain 1 space you have until you get to your very last one. So I just have 1 more. At the very end, you should have 1 cluster left, and then this chain 3 where we started the row. And I'm going to chain 1 as the space in between clusters. And then I'm going to do 1 double crochet in the top of this chain 3 here that we did. Just go right in through the top chain, do a double crochet. So just keep going with this same thing. Repeat these rows. This side is just going to go straight up. The rows are going to be alternating with a cluster of 3 and then 1 double crochet, cluster of 3, 1 double crochet, so on and so forth. And then on this side, every row is going to have a double crochet or a chain 3. You're going to keep decreasing until it fits wide enough to like have a neck opening, but also like how skinny do you want your shoulder straps to be. I'm going to do 1 more row of decreases. So I'm going to turn my work. This side needs to be a double crochet. So I'm going to chain 3. That will count as my double crochet plus a chain 1 for the spaces. And then I'll skip this, move on to this open space right here, and do my first cluster of 3. Chain 1, move on to my next open spot. And then at the end of this row, we just have this cluster of 3. So we end the row with 1 double crochet in the top of your first double crochet right here, which is actually a chain 2. There you go. Now that was my last row of decreasing. So from here, I will just keep working straight up because this width right here is what I liked for my shoulder straps. So I'm just going to keep it at this width and keep going up until it reaches the right height. And I'll show you what that is in just a moment. If you have a bigger size, if yours is wider than mine, you will probably need to do more decreases just until you get to the width that you personally like for your straps. So once you get to the point where you've done enough decreases on the inner neck that you just want to go straight up from here, this is what you're going to do. You're going to turn your work, and you're always going to start your row with the opposite of what you ended on. So I ended on 1 double crochet, so I'm going to start my row with a cluster of 3. So I'm going to chain 2. That's going to count as my first double crochet, and I'm going to do 2 more double crochets into my first space here. Okay, I'm going to chain 1 for my space. I'm going to do my next cluster right here. And then the same thing goes with ending your rows. You're going to end your row as the opposite of whatever is in the row before it. So this row ended with a double crochet or a chain 3. So I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go into the top of that double crochet or chain, and I'm going to do a cluster of 3. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Turning my work. The next row, it's It's going to be the same concept. You're going to start with the opposite of what you ended on. So this one starts with a cluster. So the next row is going to start with just a double crochet. It's going to be a chain 3. That will count as our double crochet plus the chain 1. And then I'm going to yarn over, do my next cluster in this open space right here. So 3 double crochets. Chain 1 for the space. Go to my next space and do another cluster of 3. Chain 1, and then this one ends in a cluster of 3, so the next one is going to end with just 1 double crochet in the top of your last spot right there. Now it's just going straight up. So we're going to keep doing this until this reaches the top of your shoulder. Once again, I will show you holding it up to my body as an example, but that's what we're doing. Okay, shoulders. Looky here. This is our shoulder piece. And you're going to want to keep going upwards on your shoulder piece until it reaches the top of your shoulder, like right in the middle. Trace down from your ear, right at the top of your shoulder, right through the middle. That is where you want it to hit. And look at it, how it wraps around your neck. Does that fit nicely? Do you have enough space? Is it breathable? Do you like the neckline? Does it look good? Do you want it to be lower? If you want it to be lower, you need to make your straps longer so that they sit all the way up here. But I like mine right up here, okay? So that's where I'm going to leave it. Keep doing rows until you are satisfied with the strap length. Just make sure it's sitting right on the top, the center of your shoulders, okay? Okay guys, I am happy with the state of my straps right now. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off my yarn. We're not going to need it anymore. Yarn over, pull it through my last loop, pull it all the way through, and tighten it up. Just for reference, what I did is I did 4 rows, decreasing in the middle, and then I did 4 rows of regular length, okay? So in total, I did 8 rows, 4 of those decreasing, 4 regular, just going straight up. This is the back, actually, okay? So now, what we need to do is obviously we're gonna have to make another strap, okay? I want to have this mirrored, so we're gonna have to do it just like the other way, you know? So first of all, I'm gonna take my yarn, I'm going to make a slip knot, I'm going to put that on my hook, and then to have it mirrored, we started on the outside last time, so this time we're going to start on the inside, okay? We're going to do exactly the opposite of what we did on this side to make it look the same. So on this side, we ended with 1 double crochet in the spot where we have our stitch marker. So on this side, we're going to start with 1 double crochet in the spot where we have our stitch marker. So starting in your marked stitch, I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go through that space and I'm going to do 1 double crochet. Moving on, we start with our regular 3 double crochet clusters. So I'm going to chain 1 because we're in a spaced area. I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to do 3 double crochets in my next open spot there. Okay, chain 1, do it again. Chain 1, do it again. Chain 1, do it one more time. On the outside end of our row on this side, it starts with a cluster. So on the outside row on this side, it's also going to have a cluster there. So we are just going to match this up with this side. So however many rows you did of decreasing, do that on this side, decreasing in the middle, and then however many rows you did straight up, okay? So I'm going to do 3 more rows because I've already done my first on the decrease. Whenever I turn it, it's going to be the same thing. Whatever you have down here, you're going to do the opposite to start the row. So I just need 1 double crochet. I'll actually do a chain 3 that counts as my double crochet plus the chain 1. Then I'll yarn over, go to my next space, do my cluster of 3. I'm going to work all the way across here until I get to the end. Okay, so I've got to my last space. Need to do a decrease, which is going to be 1 double crochet in the top of our last double crochet right here. There we go. Turn. And I'm on the decreasing side, so we're going to start with just 1 double crochet or a chain 3 that counts as our double crochet plus the chain 1. And I'm going to go to my first space right over here, do my clusters, work this all the way across. Okay. Moving on. I only need 4, so this will be my last row with the decreases. Last space, just do 1 double crochet on the top of this double crochet. And there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. That matches up on the other side where I also have 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 rows of decreasing. Now I'm going to do my regular rows just going straight up. And for me, I only need 4 of them. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I have reached the point where my shoulder panels, my straps, they match each other. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off my yarn. There we go. And we are done at the moment with this one. Now what you have to do is grab your other square and do pretty much exactly the same thing. We are going to make these same shoulder straps exactly the same way that we just did. We're just going to put it on our other square. And then once we have them both done, we'll attach them at the top and voila. So I'm going to go do that. And if you need help, you can rewatch the last segment because it is exactly the same. All right, guys, once you have your shoulder straps done on both of your squares, we are going to be connecting them at the top and we can just sew these together. So if you have left your ends long enough, you can probably use this to sew them together. On this side, it's long enough, but on this side, it's not. So I'm just going to have to get some of my yarn and use it to do the sewing, but I'm just going to start on this side. Actually, first, we need to put our right sides together. Okay. I'm going to do a whip stitch. I'm going to line these up and sew them together. So I'll just start by going under the first stitch on my back side. I'm going to go under the first stitch on my front side. And I am going under both loops through the top there. Pull that through. And I'm going to go back to the back side. Go through my next stitch on the back, go through my next stitch on the front, pull that through, tighten it up, and we're just going to continue in every stitch all the way across. And this is a whip stitch. I'm doing a whip stitch, but you can use any method you'd like to get these shoulder straps connected. Sometimes I like to do a slip stitch, row, or a single crochet them together, or, you know, just whatever you prefer. Okay, once you've done that, it is now connected. I'm just going to tie these together because they're both right there at the end. I'm not going to cut them off though, because I will actually weave in these ends later. Okay, so that's done. Now I'm going to do it to the other side as well. None of these are long enough, unfortunately. I was not thinking ahead, so I will just take a piece of this, make sure that it's long enough to sew across there, cut it off, thread up my needle, and I'm going to whip stitch across here as well. Okay, that's done. We have just sewn together our shoulder straps. This is what your entire piece should be looking like. Now, this is your neck hole, so put it over your head. Make sure it fits around your neck comfortably. Do you have room to breathe? Is it how you wanted it? The next thing we're going to need to do to continue work on our top is to take the sides and come to the middle. It's going to be very similar to what we just did on the neckline. So we're going to start pretty much where your armpits are, and we're going to do the same decreasing that we did so that it will make this round shape around our armhole, and we're going to go just until it reaches the halfway point. This is like super helpful if you're wearing a tank top, because there's usually a seam right there in the middle. So we're going to go to the seam, and then we're going to do it the same thing on the back. We're going to go from the back, swoop down to the middle. So, yes. In order to find the spot on the side where you should be starting your rows, what you want to do is you want to look sideways first of all and make sure that your ends are kind of lined up, because you wouldn't want to have it pulled all the way down like this and your back is like super hiked up and your front is all the way down, right? So kind of try to have it in an even spot so that they are in the same area generally, okay? Then we're pretty much going to do what I just said. Stick your thumbs in your armpits, figure out where that line is, and that is where you're going to want to start your rows. So for me, that is pretty much right on the corner, or I could do one row down. So once I find that, I'm going to put a stitch marker there on both sides so I know where to start. Make sure it is in the same spot on both sides of your square, okay? Cool. You are also going to have to mark that same spot on the back. So, I mean, this is a mirrored image. They look exactly the same on the front and the back, so you could just turn it around and put your stitch markers on. You can also just take the whole thing off and put your stitch markers in the same spot, whatever you would like to do. All right, guys, after we have our two important spots marked, we are going to start working on the side extensions. I'm going to continue working with this cream colored yarn. And like I said, this is going to be pretty much exactly the same as the way we did our neckline. So I'm going to turn this sideways and I'm just going to like open it up because I'm only going to be working on this side for right now. I'm going to get my yarn ready. So I will tie a slip knot, put that on my hook, tighten it down. And then I'm going to be starting at the bottom right here. The bottom is going to be our flat edge because this is going to be, you know, the bottom of your shirt going around your waist. And the top where your stitch marker is, that is going to be the decreasing edge, which is going to cause the roundness to go around your armpit, okay? So I'm going to start down here with a cluster of 3 double crochets in this corner spot. So I'll just yarn over, go through, put my first double crochet, do 2 more in that same spot. Don't forget, in between your clusters, we're going to be chaining 1. Continue all the way up until you get to your stitch marker. All right, so I've stopped one space before my stitch marker here, and the stitch marker is where we're going to start the decreasing. So I'm just going to put 1 double crochet in this space that I have marked here. There we go. And then we can go ahead and turn our work. We're going to keep going with the decreases. So I'm going to chain 3 That will count as our double crochet plus a chain 1, and then I'm going to continue with my granny stitch pattern in the next open space right here. There we go. Continue all the way down to the end. To keep the flat edge on your end, just remember whatever you finished with in your last row, you're going to do the opposite on the row you're working right now. So this row ended in a cluster of 3, which means my next row is going to end in just 1 double crochet on the very end there. Turn my work. The last row ended with 1 double crochet, so the next row is going to start with a cluster of 3. So I chained 2, now I'm going to yarn over and do 2 more double crochets in that first space, and that counts as my first cluster of 3. Okay, I'm going to continue working up until I get to the end where the decreases are. At the very end, we're going to decrease again, so we're going to put 1 double crochet into the top of this double crochet or the chain 3. Here we go. And we are just going to continue with these rows, keeping one side flat and one side decreasing until it has reached the correct length for you. And at this point, it's really helpful to be able to try on your work, because we want to make this long enough until it reaches right about the center of your side, and I will show you what that looks like on myself. Here we are. I just finished one side panel. Mine is 6 rows. Once again, I'm looking at the side, trying to make sure that they are generally lined up. You should try this on periodically while you're adding rows so that you know where is a good stopping point. For me, since I made this before, I knew it was going to be 6 rows. But this is what you should be looking for whenever you put it on. This should go right to the middle of your armpit area, okay? Well guys, here is what my side rows look like up close. Once I reached my finished number, which for me was 6 rows, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I decreased down the entire side, so at the top up here, we only decreased for like half the amount of rows, and then we went straight up. This time we were decreasing the entire time. Now that that's done, we need to do the exact same thing on the other side of our square over here, okay? Yeah, we're just going to do the exact same thing. On the other side, I started at the bottom. This time I'm going to start at the top. And we're starting in the marked stitch. This is where our decreases are going to start. So I'm just going to do 1 double crochet in that space. And then we will move on and do regular clusters all the way down until we get to the corner here. In the last corner, you're going to want to end with a cluster of 3 double crochets to finish off your row. And then from here, you get the gist. We're going to do exactly the same thing that we just did. On the other side, we're going to do one side flat, the other side decreasing, and make sure you do the exact same number of rows that you did on the other side. So for me, I did 6 rows. So on this side, I am also going to do 6 rows. Okay? All right. So once you have finished your other side of rows, you can go ahead and cut off your yarn if you'd like. And this is what your work should be looking like. You have your square, your 2 sides coming off at a slant. Yes, yes. From here, you're going to turn your work to where your other square is, and we are going to do the exact same thing. We have to make these side panels again on both sides of your other square. Pretty much the same thing that we did with the shoulder area, okay? So make sure that your markers are in the same spot on both sides of your squares. I am not going to film this portion because it is exactly the same. We're doing exactly the same thing. So if you need to rewatch, you can rewind and watch how it's done one more time. But I am just going to pause. I'm going to do these two sides once more on my other square, and then we will come back and finish off everything else. Okay? Okay, guys, I've done the side extensions on both sides. Now I am going to cut off my yarn. Whenever I go to cut off my yarn this time, I am going to make sure I have enough to use it to sew up the sides, because we are going to do the same thing that we did at the shoulders, okay? So I'm going to leave a long end, go ahead and snip this off. And then what we're going to do is take our whole top, fold it at the shoulders, put your right sides together, and then we're going to be sewing the sides together right down this seam right here, okay, on both sides. And I'm going to be doing a whip stitch just like I did on the shoulders. I'm going to take my long piece of yarn that I cut off, put it through my tapestry needle, and I'm going to be sewing these together through every stitch on the side. First, make sure that they are all matched up and ready to go, okay? Okay, there we go. That's all done. Now I'm going to do the other side. Both of our sides are now sewn together, looking good. Now, at this point, it would be a good idea to try on your vest. Make sure it fits nicely. Make sure you like how it's draping around your body. We are going to finish off the top by adding some final touches, like some rows around the neckline, the sides, and the bottom. But before you move on, just give it a quick try on. Make sure it fits good, and then we can move on. Another thing to do at this point, it would be a really good idea for you to go through and weave in all of these ends that are sticking out everywhere. I know it's a hassle and it sucks, but now would be the best time to do it, okay? I will show you how I weave in my ends on one of them, so I'm just going to pick this one. And this one has no other ends around it, so it's just going to be woven into the fabric. And I will do that by just weaving it under the stitches around it. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get it to a point where it's like right here or like right in the middle of a cluster. Make sure you're doing this on the back side of your work as well. Okay, once it gets to that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this yarn, and it's already done it itself. I'm going to split it in half like this. I'm going to take one of the ends after it's split, and I'm going to put that back through my needle, and I'm going to wrap that around a few strands of yarn in the area. After you've done that, you can take your yarn needle out, and then you can take your two ends and tie them together in a knot, and that just secures your end a little bit more than if you were just to regularly weave them in. Okay, once that's done, you can go ahead and snip those ends off. And now your end is woven plus tied in and secured. Okay, I'm going to go and do that with all of these ends all over my project. And then we'll come back. Okay guys, there we go. Look at that. All of my ends are woven in. Magic. So now from here, I am going to turn my work inside out, because right now, looking at the back, I want to be looking at the front side or the right side of the work. And from here, what we are going to do is we are going to put some rows of single crochet on the armholes and the neck hole just as like a finishing touch. I think it makes it look really nice. And then after that, we're going to move our way down to the bottom and we're going to be doing some single crochet ribbing. But for now, let's focus on our rows of single crochet. So I'm going to get my yarn ready, and why don't we just start on the neckline. I'm going to go ahead and make a slip knot, put that on my hook, and I'm going to start doing a row of single crochets all the way around my neckline in a circle. Why don't we start right up here on the shoulder where we sewed it together, okay? So I'm going to go right in the middle if you can. Find a spot and go through there, and I'm going to put a single crochet. Okay, we're going to single crochet all the way around here. On rows of double crochet, the best thing to do is to have a single crochet on every side piece and then in between every stitch. So here, right where we started, this would technically be in between stitches, and then I'm going to go around this one. I'll just do a single crochet around the whole thing. Just go through that big space right there and do a single crochet. And then I need one in between the rows. So right here would be this little hole that's technically the top of this double crochet. So I go right there. That will be between rows. And then I want to do one around the double crochet right there. Just go around the whole post. There we go. And then I need one between rows, which will be this one, this hole right here. Next, around the whole double crochet. Next, in between rows. Around the whole double crochet, in between rows. And, you know, just repeat this all the way around the circle. Okay guys, here we are. I've gone all the way around the neck hole, and I want to do 2 rows of single crochets. So there's my first one. Now I'm going to slip stitch into the top of our first single crochet to complete that round. From here, chain 1, tighten it up, and I'm going to do another row of single crochets all the way around, just directly on top of our last single crochets. Okay, I've made it all the way around with 2 rows of single crochet, and that is where I want to leave it off. If you'd like to do more rows, make this a little bit thicker, you totally can, but I'm just going to do 2. So at this point, I'm going to cut off my yarn. And then I'm going to take this, pull it straight out until the yarn pops out. Then I want to thread up my tapestry needle. I'm going to close this off in the round. And you do that by taking your needle, going through the top loop of the first single crochet you did, pull it through there, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go down through the loop of the last single crochet that you did. Just go straight down the top right there. What that does is it creates this little loop with your yarn that's on your needle right now, and then it creates loops going all the way across here, so you can't tell where the rows started or ended. Now just weave your ends in. There we go. Here's my 2 rows completely finished. Looking good, looking good. I love it. And now we're going to do the exact same thing on both of our armholes. I'm going to do 2 rows of single crochet all the way around, starting and ending the exact same way. Okay? Okay, I'm back. Here we are. I have finished all of my outlining rows for the neckline and our little armhole area. Doesn't that look nice? I also only did 2 rows of single crochet on here. So there we go. Both sides is all done. So the top of your vest should be complete. Now we're going to make our way down to the bottom. For the bottom, you're going to need your 5mm hook, but we're also going to need our 4mm hook at some point, so just keep that handy. What we're going to do is we're going to take our yarn and we are going to start with just a round of single crochets. So this will be the same as the first row of single crochets that we did up here. You're going to get your yarn started with a slip knot, put it on your hook, and find a spot and start with your round of single crochets. It's going to be the same idea. So single crochet all the way around, just 1 round until you get back to where you started. Okay guys, I went all the way around. Once you get back to where you started your row, you're going to want to slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet that you did. And then at this point, this is where you're going to switch from your 5mm hook to your 4mm crochet hook. There you go. And now what we're going to do is we are going to do single crochet rows through the back loop only to create ribbing around the bottom. This is a little bit different because instead of working around like you regularly would, we are going to be working up and down and connecting it to the bottom at the end of each row. So you can make your ribbing as long or as short as you would like. First, you're going to start with a chain. This is going to determine how tall your ribbing is. So I am going to chain 6 because that is about how tall I want my ribbing to be. That is 1.5 inches. Now once you've done that, I'm going to turn my work because like I said, we are going to be working back and forth along here, okay? After I've got my chain, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back on that chain with a row of single crochets. I'm going to go all the way until I get to my last stitch. So I chained 6, skipped the first one, so I should have 5 single crochets. I've done 4, and right now I'm going to do number 5, which will be my last one. What we're going to do is in our last stitch, we're going to connect this to the bottom of our vest, okay? So I'm going to go through the bottom, starting my single crochet, yarn over, pull through, And now this is where I'm going to connect it to the bottom of the vest. So before we do our last pull through, we are also going to go through a stitch on the bottom here. This one right here, this is where we chained off from. So you want to skip that one and go right to the next one here. Go through there. Once your hook is through there, you can go ahead and complete your single crochet. So I will yarn over and pull through all the loops on my hook. That completes our last single crochet there, and it also attaches that single crochet to the bottom. Okay. Now we need to start our next row, but first we need to go ahead and attach the beginning of the next row to the bottom of our vest. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch into the next open single crochet on the bottom of my vest here. This is the one we just connected to, so I'm going to put my slip stitch in the next one right here. Just go through that stitch, yarn over, pull through, pull through. So now the beginning of your next row is already connected. You can turn your work. And we can start working back on our row here. So what we're going to do, the first stitch is this hole. This is kind of in the way, but you'll just get used to it. I'm going to move it out of the way for now so that you can see. Our first stitch is right here. Make sure you don't miss it, okay? So, like I said, I chained 6, skip 1, so I have 5 stitches. So this is my first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But in order to make this look like ribbing, we're going to have to single crochet through the back loops only. On the first stitch, it actually doesn't really matter very much. Whenever I am doing back loop only single crochet ribbing, I always make my first stitch and my last stitch just regular single crochets because I think that adds a bit of stability. So that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go through the first stitch right here. I'm going to go through both loops because it's just a regular single crochet. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through the last 2 to finish that single crochet. Now, every stitch from here to the very last stitch, I'm going to make it in the back loop only. So I'm going to turn this so that I'm looking at the top, and I'm just going to do the single crochet through this back loop here. Got it? So there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. Now I have 1 stitch left in the row, and if you remember, I like to do the first stitch and the last stitch as regular single crochets. So I'm going to go through both loops just because it's the last stitch, yarn over, pull through, do a regular single crochet. There you go. Now turn your work. I do not chain 1 in between rows of single crochet, so I'm not going to chain 1 here. I'm just going to turn my work and continue. First stitch of the row is a regular single crochet. All of my middle stitches are going to be back loop only. So look at the top, go through the back loop only. I only have 3 stitches in the middle, so that's 1, that's 2, and that's 3. Now my last stitch, this one is actually going to be in the back loop only because I'm a liar and I forgot. On the outside, the right side of my work, this is where you're going to be able to see all of the details. I am going to do it in the back loop only, but whenever we turn it and we're working on the inside, it doesn't matter if it's in the back loop only because that's on the inside, you can't see it. But since it's on the front, I want to do it in the back loop only so that you can still see this line here. That's what creates the illusion of having ribbed stitches. Anyway, sorry about that. I'm going to go through the back loop from my last single crochet. I'm going to yarn over, pull through, and then remember at this point is when you need to connect it to your work. So I'm going to go into my next open single crochet in the row, which is this one right here. Just going to stick my hook through there, and then I can complete my single crochet. So yarn over, pull through everything on the hook. Okay, there it is. Now to start my next row, I need to connect it to the work. So I'm going to do the slip stitch. That's done, and then I'll turn my work. And this is just going to repeat all the way around the entire bottom of your vest until you come back to meet up with where you started these rows. But I'll do a couple more just in case you are still a little bit confused. So right now I'm on the inside, and the first stitch I'm just going to do like a regular single crochet. All the ones in the middle I will do in the back loop only. And the last stitch of the row I'm just going to do a regular single crochet. Okay, turn it. First stitch, just a regular single crochet. All the ones in the middle and to the end are going to be in the back loop only. Once I get to my last stitch, I will still go through the back loop only, yarn over, pull through, but I need to connect it, so I'm going to go into my next available single crochet, put my hook through there. Now I will finish off my single crochet by yarning over and pulling through everything on my hook. Here we go. Begin the next row, slip stitch up one, turn your work, and do the same thing. Okay, I hope that is enough for you. I'm not going to film myself doing the whole thing because these are just repeat rows all the way around the bottom of this. But this is how it should look. And yeah, work this all the way around the bottom until you get back to the stitches where you've started. Okay guys, I've made it all the way around with my ribbing. It's looking pretty good, but I just got to the last single crochet in the round, so this is where I'm going to cut off my yarn. Cut off enough to where you're going to have to like sew this together, so a good amount. And then I'm going to just pull this straight out like so. And now I'm going to sew these two together just right up through here to connect the ribbing rows. All right, there we go. Sewed together officially, and now I only have two ends left to weave in. This one where we just finished, and this one where we started the row of single crochets. So go ahead and weave those ends in, and you will be done. Okay, since we made the ribbing with a smaller hook, it should kind of taper in the bottom of your work, but it's nice and stretchy. But we are done. Look at that. All right, everyone, well, here it is, our finished vest. What do you think? What do you think? Honestly, I picked these colors out and then I started making it and I was like, why does it look like Shrek? But anyway, regardless, it is beautiful. Now, there is no true front or back since we made everything symmetrical. So whichever way you end up wearing this, it's going to be totally fine. If you made this and you post pictures of it, please tag me. I would love to see it. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Leave some comments down below letting me know how it went. Did you like yours? What colors did you make it in? All that kind of stuff. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content from me. I make tutorials, I make vlogs, I make lots of stuff. So check it out. And that is about all. So once again, thank you very much, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!